We have Sasha with us from Charlie Oscar today, and she has built the ambassador program of Different Dog in the UK from scratch. So we're gonna talk about how they basically manage 300, 400 ambassador per month and doing it successfully, and also bringing revenue from it. So yeah, let's get started.
We first connected when I was at Yoppie, and it probably almost 3-4 years ago, which is wild to me to think that, I've known you and Scope for that long. Crazy.
Yeah, that was the Yoppie time. I totally forgot that. And then you moved on to Charlie Oscar, which is
Yes.
is that a growth agency and then owns Different Dog, or what's the structure?
Yeah, so we are a growth consultancy today. However, how Different Dog came about is they're not our usual client. So originally, Charlie Oscar was an investment firm, so private. And our point of difference within the market was that beyond just investment, we also offered a data science team and then also a growth marketing team that we would then embed into those investments to help them scale more quickly and efficiently and profitably, obviously. And Different Dog was our first investment company under that model, or I guess version of Charlie Oscar. And then quickly, after we had a lot of success with Different Dog and some of our other investments, we then just started getting a lot of brands knocking on our door saying, we actually just want your data science growth market capabilities. We don't want your investment. And also, that kind of, I guess, industry is extremely competitive. And we kind of just thought, let's go where the market is telling us to go. There's so many VCs and investment companies out there. Why add to the mix? And actually, solve some proper challenges that brands are seeing. We opened our doors, and today, we're a consultancy mainly, but obviously we still have investment in Different Dog, but also they just act like a client day to day.
Is it mainly D2C brands, right? That's kind
Mainly,
of the core.
digital consumer brands. We sometimes in the consultancy, like we've got some B2B companies. However, we primarily focus on digital, consumer brands.
We've talked before, like, what should we talk about? But I'm super, super curious and interested to hear more about just the whole journey of Different Dog. Because I remember when we talked about Different Dog and influence marketing, I think it was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Everything was very new. I mean, I guess it was your first investment too. And also an interesting space like dog influencers, like how many dog influencers are out there? So I'd love to hear more about that journey, struggles and things that worked out very well. Obviously, it's going well for you guys, but I think also other brands would love to hear a little bit more about that journey, because you guys kind of started from scratch, and also about the space, like the pet space. Just for people that will listen to this, what's Different Dog?
So Different Dog is a fresh food dog company subscription business. So what they do is do personalized dog food subscription plans for dogs, all breeds, all sizes, and it's all based around fresh meals and foods and recipes. So nothing, processed, no nasty ingredients. It's all gently cooked, fresh meat, and vegetables and fruits. And superfoods, all kind of backed by vets. It's a very, very exciting challenger brand in the space. Premium as well, definitely to note. We're trying to, I guess, compete against those, grocery store brands that are full of fillers and, actually don't provide much nutrition to dogs. It's a very, very fun brand to work on, because they're obviously doing something good to the planet, but also for dogs and their health.
It's fun when you guys, are against the big giants, because, I can imagine the market is pretty, like, there's probably one or two huge brands that kind of control the whole market, and you coming now and just taking over. Is that kind of the case, or?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think, like the feeling within within the category and the space, because there's quite a few. Obviously, we've got competitors. We're not the only ones, with this offering. Obviously, there's like minor differences that we can play on. However, I think it's a really exciting category because I think, the pet food industry hasn't changed for decades, and there's not much education around it either for pet owners. So, when you do get a puppy for the first time, you're usually just told, what brand to feed them from the get-go. And it is usually a grocery store brand. And they can obviously be on that brand for years and years and years. It's very much an education, I guess, challenge, I think, in terms of penetrating the market and acquiring new customers is, trying to educate them on the fact that what they've been feeding their dogs for a very long time may not be the most nutritionally, beneficial food, and that making the switch can be, really time consuming if you do it yourself. I know in my own family, we have a lot of dogs, and my mum it loves to meal prep and actually cook the food herself. But obviously that's very time consuming to chop all of the vegetables, choose the right meats, make sure it's actually nutritionally balanced. Different dog takes makes it really, really convenient for people to ensure that they know that the food is nutritious for their pet, but also is actually vet backed. So the science behind it is covered as well, and it's delivered straight to their door. So again, obedience. So yeah, I think it's kind of a big education challenge, but also there's a lot of benefits as well that kind of definitely sway people to consider making the switch eventually. And it's definitely like convenience and the overall health of their dog.
Yeah. I guess then the influences was a big part of educating the whole market. And what was when we met, that was like 3 years ago, what was your initial, if you remember, what were your like initial influencer marketing strategy? So just think of like the brands that are just getting started. What was your first strategy just to, get the product out there?
Yeah, so actually, Oscar, when we first sort of started working with Different Dog within their influencer department, they already had some initial sort of strategy in place. It was very small and very sort of, I guess, fan base. So they had about 20 what we called pup partners, ambassadors, different dog influencers, dog fluencers, whatever you'd like to call them, dog accounts on Instagram who frequently posted about the brand in return for gifted product. And obviously, that was fantastic. They had, a really loyal sort of 20-something community. However, when it comes to actually making a significant impact on revenue from those ambassadors and the content that they're creating, so ROI from that strategy, it was minimal because we saw potential, obviously, because they were posting a lot of content and, creating good content as well, high quality content, and getting the word out there. However, for us to actually have an impact within the overall growth marketing ecosystem against other paid channels, 20 simply isn't enough. So for us to, I think it's a huge challenge within a lot of influencer brand marketing teams. Influencers are typically seen as quite a fluffy channel, a brand channel that, is just based on vanity metrics. It doesn't ever really deliver much revenue, but at Charlie Oscar and for Different Dog, what we've built so today, we've been able to completely prove that it's, one of the leading performance channels, in modern day marketing. It can drive significant revenue. So what we started to do is we obviously did a big kind of, I guess, rip up of their playbook and what they saw, what they, considered their influencer strategy, and started, seeding at scale. And that was purely based on, some of my experience previously within the industry, but also based on Charlie Oscar's experience of knowing how, the volume of data we needed to input into our attribution models to prove that it was a channel that could drive a lot of revenue. compared to, Meta, Google, etc. So pretty much within a year, we scaled from 20 partners to 300 partners who were all posting content about different dog, various, types of creative as well, from educational to, stills of them just posing with the product to, meme type reels, which is really, really fun. Every single month they were posting that content. So that's obviously an enormous amount of reach on social. And it was all just in return for gifted product, which is incredible. So again, with that kind of volume of data, we were then able to show significance within our attribution models and prove that it was proving significance within the ecosystem and driving revenue. And which allows, allows us to then, I guess, go to senior stakeholders and ask for more budget for that channel, which again is that common, going back to kind of my starting point around, a lot of influencer brand teams struggle to acquire that budget because it is seen as a fluffy channel that's just based on vanity metrics. So that was our kind of, I guess, our overall objective within the first, year was to prove that it could be a channel, worthy of kind of being seen as a performance growth channel.
What was it when you started doing like 200, 300 collabs, what was it in those type of collaborations that really worked or were showing sales? And was it converting in other channels or was it actually converting from the influence directly?
Yeah, so I guess in terms of what was working, I think so there's a few parts to it. I think number one, when it comes to seeding at scale, I think we like to see ourselves as our process sitting on like a spectrum. So on one end, you've got, really robotic sort of, I guess, agencies or possibly softwares out there that automate the entire process end to end. And maybe, there's no sort of, I guess, human touch involved within the overall process. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got, the OGs of seeding, I like to call them PR agencies. They've been doing it for years. However, they've got a very, limited black book of close relationships with creative. So, it's not at scale. But however, what they do very well is like that white glove service where, they treat everyone like a VIP. They again have those very close relationships with everyone. So we like to see ourselves as kind of sitting in the middle, and with success is that you make elements of your process to outreach to influencers at scale efficiently. That involves, having a really smart tech stack and automations involved. However, whilst doing that, you need to make sure you are developing close relationships with every single one of those, creators that you're gifting to or turning into ambassadors. Because that's where we find the most success in terms of post rate. So people actually posting content after being gifted because they feel like they know us behind Different Dog. They know the team. And they feel like they've been treated not just like, a creator who's, just a brand trying to get content out of them, to never then talk to them again. So we make sure most emails after, outreach and onboarding is super, super custom and personalized. We ensure to follow up with everyone. And that's where, you get an increased post rate and then also loyalty long term. Again, for just the cost of goods, which I think is key here. Because again, I think the biggest benefit of seeding is just the fact that, a lot of, I think, brands get stuck in this flywheel of, when it comes to executing an influencer strategy, they start kind of trying to execute every sort of application or implementation of it, such as, paying people heaps of money for like once-off posts, getting into contracts that are really hard to get out of with like larger creators and they're paying a lot of money and not getting any ROI from it. And then they just get confused and vague results. End up spending a lot of money and never really being able to justify the cost. Whereas with seeding, you're never paying more than the cost of the goods. And then if you measure it correctly, so again, never go off just direct code redemptions, or, again, vanity metrics like likes and engagements and things like that. and actually invest into proper measurements such as attribution models to actually understand the incrementality of influencers as a channel, as a total channel, not just individual creators, you're able to understand the true ROI. Then you kind of, are able to, have a very successful campaign, and you're never again paying large fees.
I love that. I mean, I totally agree, especially when it comes to the way of working with, you can call it seeding campaigns. Like there will always be those tools that try to automate everything and like no relationships at all. And I usually talk a lot about it. Like I talk with so many brands and they're like, oh, we just want to automate everything. Like this is so time consuming. I'm like, yeah, but there's a human on the other side. Like this is not like a meta performance ad campaign. Like, of course, you can maybe automate 70% of it. Like you said, like maybe the first initial email, but the rest is like building relationships. And another thing, like going to a pure classic agency, that is just not scalable. Like it's very closed, and they don't share anything. And they don't measure in the right way.
No, not at all. And I think that's the two sort of my main like tips and tricks and main, I guess, recommendations to brands is, one, making sure it's a relationship game, even when it comes right down to the bottom, I guess, of the pyramid, I like to call it, of like influence implementation. You've got seeding on the bottom at scale, and then you've got celebrity ambassadors right at the top, right? I think no matter where you are in that pyramid, as you say, exactly, there's a human on the other side, and you need to treat them as a human and develop relationships, because you're never going to get the most out of them unless you have that relationship. And then secondly, measurement, always. Because vanity metrics, I think, it will never get you to a place where you can acquire more budget for that channel or prove the ROI of it, so that you can scale, to hundreds and thousands of, ambassadors per month. And again, never paying more than the cost of the goods.
Yeah. But when you guys had like 300 collaboration per month or 300 ambassadors, you mentioned also attribution and measuring everything. Like, do you ever think about ambassador did not perform or was not loyal enough, and then put in more? Like, what was the process and structure there? Like, how did you determine if someone was like, you're not a good fit and a buy, and then you put in a new one? Like, what was the process?
I mean, the offboarding process is just as important as the onboarding. So I think when you get to that scale, again, that's a huge time investment, because again, if you are putting, that much, I think, emphasis on relationship management, community management then comes into play. So to manage that, what we did have terms and requirements in return for the gifted amount of product on their subscription. And that was, a minimum amount of content posted per month, and also just engagement overall with the brand. And we, made it very, very clear that we would be doing monthly audits. And if you weren't, abiding by those terms and conditions or requirements, we'd have to have that conversation around offboarding. So, and again, most of the time, I would say 9 times out of 10, if it ever did come to an offboarding situation where we found that there was a creator not posting anymore, or just not really engaging with us or replying to emails, a lot of the time it was a mutual sort of agreement of, I actually, I'm not a creator anymore, or I don't have time for this, or maybe possibly sometimes, pets are unpredictable. Maybe the dog is off the food. And that's, a key thing within the pet food space. So a lot of the time it was kind of a nice mutual offboarding. Never kind of had, people who are upset by it. So and again, that just again comes down to relationship management. And again, when it comes to making sure you've got, if you have hundreds of ambassadors, making sure that they are engaged, don't just onboard them and speak to them again and hope that they're posting. There's so many things you need to implement within that program to make it, incentivize them, excite them, and keep them engaged. And ways in which we've done that is through content challenges. So we always do like monthly newsletters where There's prizes to be won for the best content. And, we've been running this program for almost like 2 years now. And it's still something throughout my career that I'm just shocked by is the loyalty and excitement of these creators in this program, and how long some of them have been in the program and are still, creating the most out there creative content consistently month on month. And it's because we keep it in, we make it exciting and we incentivize them. There's events and things for them to go to. So I think that's super, super important to, I guess, minimize that, possibility of having to offboard someone as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like having events, content challenges, like I think that's fun. I think you need that. Otherwise it would just be like, here's a new product. It's pretty boring. And then everyone is doing the same.
I think, as much as you can have the seeding strategy, if you then have that ambassador strategy as well in tandem, that needs a completely different strategy on top of, it's different. And you need to ensure that you are creating something that people want to be a part of. So yeah, we put a lot of emphasis on that in terms of, if someone's going to be, within this program, how do we actually get them to want to stay and want to be a part of it? And actually, it's actually become, 2 years on, something that a lot of creators, we get a lot of inbound about because they've heard about it and they want to be a part of it. And that's what you want, is, when you are seeding at scale, actually getting inbound as opposed to having to outreach constantly. So, I think having an ambassador program and a separate strategy for that is key.
And I'm also curious, like when you started all this, maybe it was easier. I don't know. I remember maybe it was easier to start seeding and getting accept on that. Nowadays, what I hear from brands sometimes they feel like, but they need payment. Like they just ask for payment. Like they'll just take the product and be happy. Would you say it's harder now, or like what's the secret there? Because you guys obviously are killing it and still continue having your community. But have you seen any pattern? Have anything changed since 2 years back?
Yeah, I think I would say it's more or less, easier or harder. I think it really just comes down to how you execute. I think, again, just going back to if you're automating everything, they're probably going to tell and see that it's automated message and be like, they don't actually care. And they'll, message back and be like, you actually got to pay me. So I think that, again, there's an element of just, again, I'll always emphasize and sound like a broken record, but personalization, relationship management always is key. But I think when it comes to influencers who, do ask for fees or payment, I think it's really important as a brand to respect that and understand that, for a lot of creators, this is their side hustle or it's their full-time job. They have every right to ask for payment. So in that case, when it does come to seeding and gifting, you just have to accept the fact that there is a risk to that overall implementation of influencer marketing. And not everyone is going to post. A post rate is a post rate for a reason. You're not going to, if you get 100% post rate, hands off to you. We obviously try to, at Charlie Oscar, get that post rate as high as possible for different dog, always. And that's, obviously where ambassadors come in. And again, just coming down to our execution of how well we seed and make relationships with people. So I think understanding that it is a risk that people won't post, and always, if someone asks for a fee, respecting for the first time, going, of course, unfortunately, we may not have budget for that right now, but please just accept this gift. Zero obligation. That zero obligation language is so, so important. I don't think anyone in their outreach emails when it comes to seeding should be demanding content. One, it's kind of illegal in some places. So I think, again, it's all about starting off the relationship from a really genuine, authentic standpoint. Not demanding anything, not asking them for anything, and just, developing that relationship in a way that, makes them feel like, actually, I am a fan of this brand if they like the product. And I will post because I want to get the word out there. And that's the type of people you do want to be posting. You don't want people who are just, posting because they get a free gift. You shouldn't be choosing probably those creators anyway. So I think that's, yes, super, super important is kind of the outreach part of your process and doing that as quickly as possible. And then another element of it is if you are getting to a point of scale where you've got hundreds of people that you're seeding, you should be also redistributing a lot of that UGC onto paid via whitelisting agreements. And obviously when whitelisting comes into play, we have a lot of success with getting whitelisting agreements completely, again, just for the cost of the goods, which is and again, I'm sounding like a broken record. Relationship management is key, and choosing people who like having, that human touch throughout the outreach process and also discovery process as well. So not just, generating a list and going, yeah, that will do, send an email. We go through every single profile to make sure that they are actually, an account that we can see ourselves partnering with long term, and being really, really, I guess, picky is the right word. And that's, again, will allow you to have that, it's a long-term play. It will have that benefit later on. So when we do approach people for whitelisting agreements, they're like, oh my gosh, of course, we'll do it just for, a free subscription or, a free product. And obviously, if, fees are involved and like an ad is working and it's becoming a really, really successful asset, 100% we will not, take advantage of anyone. And we'll always, negotiate compensation with that creator. Because again, from a brand credibility standpoint, you don't want to be taking advantage of creators, especially if you're, gaining a lot of, I guess, benefit from their content. So yeah, I think fees obviously will definitely come into play when it gets to, paid media distribution stage. But if it comes, when it comes to once off, pieces of content on organic social, I think if you're a scale up, a startup, and you're seeding, politely decline, gift them anyway, and just develop that relationship over time so that when you do possibly have budget, can work with them then.
And because that was one of my questions too, like when you're running this bigger and bigger, like when your ambassador program becomes bigger and bigger, I can imagine when they've been an ambassador for like, let's say 6-8 months, they will maybe next time like, hey, I love your products, it's free, I love it, but now, I mean, we've been working for 7 months, I should get something more. Mm-hmm. How do you tackle that? Is like, or even, does that even happen?
Yes, I actually had a similar conversation today with one of my colleagues, and we were speaking to, I think, with especially subscription based, brands and companies. I think long-term gifted partnerships work extremely well, especially if your subscription product is based around like a need state. So for example, at Different Dog, they're feeding their pet for, a discounted price, and their dog is always going to need food. We also worked with brands such as Act deodorant. A lot of their ambassadors receive a free deodorant subscription. And again, that's a need state. Someone's always going to need deodorant. So I think, adding that benefit or I guess freebie in someone's life can be, a really, I guess, great incentive. So we actually rarely ever come across people who have been with either on an ambassador program or seeded for months ever asking for payment. They're actually more so asking to just get more involved with the brand. So, they just want to get involved in like product development, or we've even had some ambassadors at Different Dog actually want to take tours of our factory, which is incredible. Like, I think it's kind of just wanting more from us, not from, a monetary point of view, but yeah, just wanting more engagement with us as a company, whether that be, through events or getting to see behind the scenes or, testing new products. However, I guess, to caveat that, I think if you do have a product that is, just say it's maybe like a food brand, like just say like a candy brand or something like that, that would probably be quite hard to gift ongoingly month on month. Yeah. And then someone who's an ambassador for 7 months and not ask for monetary payment. And then that's when I think, my advice would be to look into, okay, if I am paying, a creator for content, how can I make the most out of that content and get the most ROI? Never, ever, again, I will always say this, do not pay for once off organic content like a feed post and, that be done. It should be, a rolling month-on-month agreement where you're getting consistent content monthly, and you're also using that content on other channels. So again, whitelisting, paid media, implementing that content into your CRM flows, onto your website. You should have, make sure you're making that content sweat as hard as you possibly can, because that's when you're again going to get the most ROI from, I guess, that spend.
Yeah. And do you get, when it comes to rights, how, if you can just, a few sentences, like just explain what should you demand when it comes to content rights, like I guess formats, the lengths, how long you can have that, like tell me a little bit more about that for those who doesn't know.
Yeah, so I think it really depends on, I guess, how you want to redistribute that content or where you see it, being placed. But if you primarily see it being placed on paid media, you need to be asking for usage rights for your paid media across Meta. That includes obviously Facebook and Instagram. If you're doing TikTok, make sure you get TikTok usage rights. So paid media obviously is a very broad term. So you need to make sure you identify the channels that content is going to be active on. And then also when it comes to length and things like that, I think, you have to make sure, again, you've got an expiry date or to those usage rights. So it's never perpetual. You might be able to negotiate perpetual usage rights, but I don't think it'd be quite rare if you were to. But yeah, make sure it is probably at least, I would say, minimum 3 months, 90 days. Because again, if you're using anything on paid media, you need time for it to actually test and learn within, Meta in the business manager as an ad, and actually see if it works or not. So you can't just I wouldn't recommend just getting usage rights for like a week or something, because you won't actually know if that worked or not when it was, redistributed.
Now, when you've been running the program for a while, like, and when we started at different dog, did you ever hit any like crazy challenges that you then later overcome?
Yeah, I think at the start, we definitely fell into a trap of we had a lot of manual labor behind reporting. So, I think when it comes to, again, because at Charlie Oscar, we measure things quite differently to a lot of brands and consultancies out there. We track every single piece of content, the date it went live, and its reach, because that's the data that gets fed into our attribution models. And I think we definitely fell into the trap at the start of reporting that all manually. So we report into every single piece of content every single day, and it's what we reach in an Excel sheet, which, is something that can 100% be automated. And obviously, again, when it comes to relationship management, and just reporting on who you've gifted, who's posted, who's ordered, again, we did a lot of manual labor in Excel sheets. Which probably would give a lot of people a heart attack if they saw those Excel sheets today. Again, all of that can be automated. So 100%, I think, if you're starting out, look into, all of the tech tools and softwares out there that are available to you. There are so many that can, make, again, efficiencies within your process. So you can spend more time on the things that matter, which are relationship management, and getting the most out of creators. So I think that was kind of the biggest mistake at the start, was kind of, doing a lot of manual love and labor to Excel.
Would you recommend anyone that plan to start working with influencers to have all the tech stack already ready? Or do you think they should just start like you guys did manually and then looking what should we improve here? Like, what would you do if you would start slower?
I think if I were to start from scratch, and just say you did have minimal budget, I would say probably do a test of 100 per month. 100 per month influencers minimum. 70 if you want to decrease it a little bit. 70 to 100, and that is manageable within an Excel sheet. And then that way, once you get the results from gifting, 100 influencers, and you can see whether it was something that had impact or significance within your overall, growth ecosystem. you can then start scaling. And then when you start scaling, I would recommend, because that number's going to go up quite quickly, to then look into, those sorts of tools and softwares to try to, create efficiencies within that process and automate things.
I mean, super interesting to hear, about how you guys start everything and especially about the seeding campaigns. I think to kind of summarize everything based on what you mentioned, if you're building an ambassador program, I think it's kind of like building a community, right? Like they kind of need to be, maybe some of them are even friends, right? And they feel like, oh, they love to be in this little different dog bubble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. Again, I've never seen anything like the Different Dog Ambassador program in my career. They are so loyal, so creative. Like you can 100%. What I love most is like going into our Instagram and going to our tags section, and you can see the content challenges we've set like month by month, just because the grid just is like a complete. So for example, you'll be able to see when we did our Christmas challenge. You'll be able to see when we did our Halloween challenge, because they're so dedicated. And there's so much creative content out there. And I've never seen such, loyal ambassadors ever. So it's a very, very special program. And again, I think it just kind of speaks to how the team at Different Dog has, put in so much time and effort into making something that, is, a program that people want to be a part of, down to, that relationship management, and being really, really strategic around seeding, and our processes around it. And I think, it's really, really special, I think, if brands can create that, because it, the beyond just revenue, I think, even from a brand point of view and community point of view, as you said, I think there's so much you can get out of it, from, it's like, it's your own little focus group, and you can do so much with them. And I would recommend it to any brand who's starting out as a very sort of cost-effective way to start scaling.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I actually had this talk like 2 weeks ago with just with another beverage brand, and they compete against Nocco. I don't know if you guys have it.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, they've started the whole ambassador program like years, 5, maybe 7, 10 years ago. And the founder of the other brand, like the competitor, he was like, I don't understand how they can, incentivize these people to make so much content, more than what they even needed. And they're like doing different challenges and they're doing so great content. And when we do it, we send products, we maybe get a story or something, but that's it. And then like nothing happens. And I was like, yeah, but they have really, really been able to build like a true ambassador program / community. And they just love being involved and doing everything. I guess that's kind of the key. Like, how can you build a ambassador community in a way?
Yeah, no. And I think it's, obviously it starts off from, a gifted, I guess, agreement around product. However, I think when you get to that ambassador stage, it's all about going beyond just product. What does your brand stand for? What are your values? How can you bring that to life in interesting ways? Through events or through merchandise or, through other incentives, that allow people to feel like they're a part of, as you said, like a Different Dog bubble or a Different Dog world. How can you, make that something that people want to be a part of long term? Because again, I don't think product is always going to be the main sort of, I guess, incentive for people to just, again, create content all the time or, create a community or want to be a part of it. Bringing people together around a shared interest, I think, is kind of your starting point, and then coming up with ideas around that is, I think, how people have to think about programs like that.
Yeah, for sure. Great. This was really interesting and it was super nice talking to you. And thanks for like sharing all this. I'm sure many brands were like, okay, let's now start from the beginning, only focus on ambassador, only seeding, like all your tips and tricks you just shared. And I think we can talk even an hour more about all this, go into details, but maybe you don't want to share all the secrets either. But I think this was great. I think many brands will hopefully, copy some of this and obviously add their own sauce on it to make it work. But yeah, this was fun. Thanks
No,
for
thank you.
joining.
Hey, thank you for having me. I always, obviously I've always been a big fan of what Scope is doing. And I think, yeah, what you're doing to empower brands to create their own programs is super, super exciting. And as a brand person, creative, who's always come up against, I guess, other people within businesses who don't, who think it's a channel that's really fluffy and can't deliver, tangible results for a business. I think, yeah, I love what you guys are doing because it's helping brands, develop a toolkit to be able to do that, and prove that it's a channel that is, will be one of the top, I think, performance channels in the next couple of years.